Thank you for taking the time to participate on this live broadcast of the Codings Talk Leadership Series. Next up is Tats Nakagawa for a freestyle conversation on leadership. Hey, welcome to another episode, live stream, of Codings Talk. This is going to be the final episode regarding leadership series that I started at the beginning of the month. It's hard to believe, Tats, we're at the end of April almost here.
Yeah, it goes quick when you're having fun, right, Jim?
It really does go fast. Tats, before we get into our conversation, it's going to be freestyle conversation on the topic of leadership. You do a favor. There might be one or two people out there that are going to be watching either live or in the replay who might not know who Tats is. And if you could talk about, Roofer's Reflection and also too about the Specified Growth podcast.
Sure, absolutely. So, like Jim, I do content for various things on top of our manufacturing business. And I get the pleasure of talking to lots of people that have a lot of experiences in different things, and just really honored to learn from others.
Yeah, and Tats has a couple you have a couple series that you do, one called Roofer's Reflection, and that I think you're getting insight from other fellow entrepreneurs in the roofing industry. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That one that's geared towards the roofing industry, telling stories, not necessarily all entrepreneurs, just different aspects of the roofing contractor side. But I do love interviewing entrepreneurs, and the specified side is entrepreneurship, business, and in and around all those topics on construction and building materials.
Very good, very good. And that's really where you and I got introduced with each other. I had been following you for a number of years on LinkedIn and really enjoyed consuming your content you were putting out there. And in a conversation back in the days when I was at SSPC, I wound up having an opportunity to kind of come on to one of your episodes, and what you were doing really inspired me to do better and be better and become a content creator myself. And, I probably don't say this enough to you. I really greatly appreciate it because you really were a catalyst for me to really get me into doing content. And I so appreciate that fire you started within me professionally to say, you need to do this. And it's an honor to be on with you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And just to clarify, I mean, you already had it. You had a site. You were, if I helped in any small way, that's great. But you already had it. I knew you were going to be great, and you're showing that you follow through.
I appreciate that. I really do. So Tats, we're just going to have a freestyle conversation on leadership. At the beginning of the month, I started off with a strong, really kind of, example of leadership, both in the military and also working with youth and different industry leaders. And as each episode went through, we focused a little bit related to corrosion and coatings industry, but really what I wanted to do is keep it general enough that it didn't matter if you were in the roofing industry, if you were in the corrosion industry, or if you were in the coatings industry. The topics that we were covering regarding leadership in industry were important for people to participate within the live streams and watch that content, but also in really kind of in a way share some of their leadership stories and some of their ideas on leadership. You yourself, you have a very unique leadership path that you've done as an entrepreneur, but also too, you have a lot of different ventures that you've done. And what I mean by it is more of the thought ventures and things of working more of in personal and professional in betterment and things like that, make yourself better. And also too, we had been connected through the Masterminds group that you used to do for the live audio. And I really found a lot of value. And there was a lot of great topics that were covered about leadership. So my first question I have for you regarding your leadership journey, what was the hardest part of really in yourself saying, listen, I want to be a leader. I need to be a leader. What was that first important decision that you had to make to pursue being a leader?
Sure. I mean, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I think, being an introvert myself, sometimes that's not a advantage in entrepreneurship because you're constantly trying to get your ideas out there, and at some point I really had to make the choice to say I have to figure out how to become more of a leader, or not sort of fulfill some of the potential I thought I had in doing that. So I really started to look at things more carefully. And I've made pretty much every mistake in the book, and I continue to make mistakes, but I hopefully not twice or three times. That would be bad. But yeah, it's very, very important, and it's something that's portrayed a certain way in TV, but it can take many different shapes, right? I honestly believe that we all have leadership qualities. It's just a matter of how do we cultivate that and sort of use that for good.
Yeah, I think it really is in your, everyone has that inside of them, and it's how it's brought out. Sometimes it's brought out through stress or a situation that might force someone to step up and take a leadership role. The other thing is the self confidence. Just like broadcasting right now, it could be in front of, a few people or hundreds or thousands of people. In fact, I went back and I looked at the last 3 episodes, and the replay, as we always say in what we do as content creators, the replay is where it's at. In 3 episodes, just in replay and live stream on 3 different channels, well over 1,500 views in total. So that's a lot of people watching the content. So if you're a little nervous, you might say, "Oh, I don't really want to have people watching me," or I'm not confident in what I could do, or I don't I feel like it goes back to that imposter syndrome. And I know you and I've had conversations about imposter syndrome. And my advice to everybody that I run into is just like you're saying, everyone has that has a leader within them. You need to be confident to bring that leader out. You're going to make mistakes. When we look at some of the most successful people, even an Elon Musk or anybody who's out there who is a very successful person, they have failure. To your point, you fail once, okay, you learn from it. Maybe you make the same mistake again, but you better not, like you said, don't make that mistake 3 or 4 times, because at that point in time, you're really not going in the right path. So we have to learn from our mistakes, and we have to be able to better ourselves from our mistakes, but have the confidence to step up and be the leader, or be a leader, participate within leadership. And I think the other thing too that you and I've had conversation on before is really taking those leadership development steps that we need to. Belonging to a group like with the masterminds, that was a great opportunity for me to network with other entrepreneurs like yourself and others, but also people who were really leaders in different industries, and some of them were very very influential people in different industries, to be able to kind of mentor with and bounce ideas off and have that that open mind and conversation. Why is it so difficult, in your opinion? Why is it so difficult for people to have leadership conversations with others?
Well, I think, as a leader, some people think that it is not leadership like to start talking about things that you're weak at, or need to work at on your, or your sort of insecurities and stuff like that. And I think that's the basis of trying to become a better leader, right? Will be willing to have those conversations, open yourself up, talk about things that you suck. I was talking to a leader that has worked with some really, really famous leaders, and I asked her what was the trait that really stood out, and she thought for a moment. She says, self-awareness. Some leaders are naturally born, they're a little bit more charismatic, some are not, but they know what they're bad at and they address that, right? And they have a group of people that tell them when they suck, and are always trying to get better, right? And to find that sort of next level, and sort of be able to find a style that works for them. I remember when I was younger, I played sports, and I played tennis, and I started late, but I worked really hard at it. But I lost a lot. I lost and lost and lost, to a point where your parents start looking at you and start feeling sorry
Yeah.
for you. Like, they're very supportive, but they're like, yeah, you're kind of punishing yourself. And one day, just before I thought I was going to quit, I just clued in on something that I was sort of playing and trying to be like others and how they approach the game. And as soon as I started to realize, well, I only have the 3 or 4 shots, it kind of looks pretty sad, but I'm really good at these, 2 or, or 3 or 4 shots. But if I can use them carefully and consistently, maybe I can do something. And I started winning a lot. It didn't look pretty, but that was what worked for me. That was me. And I think that's the thing that we want to focus on, right? Maybe we're not the best storyteller, right? So we don't have to get down on ourselves. Well, what do we have that we can cultivate, or who do we know that we can go to? And I think that's the key, is really not getting stuck on what a leader completely looks like. I've had mentors that were more strict, and people say, oh, that doesn't work. Well, given the right circumstances and the right people surrounding that leader, it can work. And some people are really relaxed and no, that won't work, because you got to hold people accountable. But really depends on the mix of people you have and how you approach it as a whole. So just to be flexible with that and understand, just because you don't fit a mold of what you think a leader is, doesn't rule you out from being an effective leader.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head right there. Talking about leadership style. That's really important to me. I have my own unique type of leadership style. Everyone has a unique leadership style. One of the side conversations I had after one of the episodes with a subscriber was the fact that if you roll back the clock and you look in past history, you had a lot of the leaders who were respected were, the blood and guts type of leader, where they were, pounding their fist and yelling and screaming, and they took command that way. In today's world, in today's society, that doesn't work. And I think that's the thing that's important, is to have your own unique leadership style. But if you see something, to your point, you were trying to replicate what other tennis people who were you viewed or others viewed as successful. I'm going to be that. That's the style I want to have. And you did it the Tats way. And like you said, it wasn't pretty, but you became better and you were able to succeed. And so having that leadership style develop within yourself, cultivate it within yourself, but also have that flexibility to listen to others and kind of gauge exactly, as a leader, how effective really am I? And then how can I change? How can I adapt? People go to school. There are courses you can take. There are seminars you could sign up. You could spend lots of money to become an effective leader. There's also a lot of low-cost ways to do it. For you, if you're looking at leadership to learn, or if you're going to recommend you're a mentor for somebody and you want to recommend, what are some of the ways that you can learn about leadership? What are some of the things that you would recommend? Like reading books, listen to podcasts. What would you recommend someone you're mentoring?
I think the easiest sort of way of doing it is finding a virtual mentor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many resources, there's so many podcasts of how people approach their thing, and if you're new to leadership, is to just try it on for size, right? Not if someone says jump off a cliff, do not do that. But if they approach it this way, they think about it this way, see if it kind of jives with the way you are, and try it on for size for a little bit, and then work through that process to see what works for you. I think another thing to realize is that who you hang around with can affect your development in your personal growth, right? So I've had the pleasure, through our company and through people like yourself in a community, is warm, progressive, helpful, willing to help, that just helps all around, right? So if you're struggling a bit, just look at the influence you have around and find any way to surround yourself with the people that you admire, you look up to. Even if you don't know them, just figure out how you can get closer to that, and it'll start to you'll start to pull that in a bit more.
Oh, very good. And recently, Tats, I don't know if you had seen, I had started a newsletter on LinkedIn called Coding's Talk Insight. Thank you to everyone who subscribes. I just got over 2,000 subscribers. So I'm very happy. That was a goal I wanted to hit right away, and hit it after the first couple of weeks, and probably about a month or so in, and hit it. So I'm very, very grateful for everybody who subscribed to it. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to it. We'll get into, now that we're out of the leadership series, it's going to get into more of the corrosion and coding topics and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to continue to grow this particular newsletter. But in this latest release that I had, what makes an effective leader? What I wanted to cover with you are some of the concepts I covered in here. And this is what I said was characteristics of an effective leader. And I say great leaders are, the first thing is collaborative. They will work together with others. They're very team oriented. It's not about me as a leader. It's about us as the team. It's about us as a company. It's about us as the organization. Or important, the other thing could be, it's about us as an industry. You kind of walk in between the roofing and materials and also in the coating side. How important is it for leaders to be collaborative with team, company, organization, and the greater industry, in your opinion?
I think it's huge, right? As Jim, as someone like yourself that sort of straddles different aspects of business and sort of not knowledge, you find there's so many opportunities to be able to sort of find things that work in one industry and bring it over to another, or just shared interests or shared partnerships that can lead to things. So I think it's huge. But one of the things I want to point out about collaboration, because I had a great guest on my show, and he said collaboration is messy. Because I always thought collaboration is, everyone's great, there's a win-win, and and many times collaboration is messy, and it's hard, it's sometimes complicated. But if you share the same vision, you're working towards the same thing. It's just, that's where it's sort of that magnifier and value comes out. But just to point out, like another thing with leadership, I always tried to figure out is, if you're running an organization that's working overall, like, what is the best benchmark, right? Is everyone just glowing happy in the entire company? I don't think that's the case, because I sometimes hear, I listen to leaders talk, and they talk about how you have to do all these things and how it needs to be perfect. And then you talk to someone in their company and they're not too happy, right? So, Ray Dalio talks a little bit about that you have, people that are really bought in, and then you have people that are pretty good, and then you have people that maybe are not happy, but they're not getting in the way of the culture. So I've always tried to understand what good feels like, right? Good doesn't feel like it's great all the time, because as a leader, you always have ups and downs. But I used to feel really restricted and sort of questioning about having to be perfect at that, and realizing that as long as you care enough about your people, as long as you care enough about your purpose, that everything generally will be moving in a forward direction.
Yeah, it goes to the, we talk about you being collaborative. Okay, you have the textbook, right? The nirvana. This is going to be the ultimate we want. But then there's the practical and the reality. And the collaborative could be a good example, like my family, my side of the family. We all loved each other. We got along great. But every holiday, the person who spoke the loudest in the family argument would be the winner. But we still able to collaborate. So to your point, to be collaborative could look and be defined and look different ways. It's like defining what is success and things like that. So that is a good point. And that's something too, I'd like to point out, that leadership can be messy, but so can business teams and a greater industry as well. So it's ultimately where you'll wind up in the end, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and just to really understand what the threshold is of decent alignment versus, dysfunction.
Yes. This next one that I had put on the recent newsletter was respect inspiring. And I think today, this is so important if you want respect, you have to give respect. I'm a golden rule person, which is to do unto others as you want them to do unto you. And so for me, I'm the type of leader where listen, if I'm a leader and I'm going to make the final decision, what I'd rather do is try to first achieve consensus. And I like that, because when you're working with a team, it can be my way or no way as a leader, right? My way or the highway, or however they say it. That seems to me, that seems to be when I was a lot younger in business. Today's a little different. And so what I like to do is try to develop consensus and come up with, this is what our goal is. This is what our mission is. This is what we're going to do. And then ultimately, if I need to make the decision as a a vote, there's a stalemate or something like that, then I will make that. What, in your opinion, what is respect when it comes to leadership and then for teams and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I like to come at things with a point of view on how do we help, right?
Okay.
Servant type leadership kind of fits sort of my personality. And whenever possible, like you said, cooperation is the best approach, right? Being able
Hmm.
to get everyone on the same page, or at least most of the people on the same page and move forward. And I think as a leader, I think where I struggle the most is when you can't get that. You got most of it and you just can't get that last little bit, but
Hmm.
you have to move forward because it would be to detriment of, that sort of organizational or goals, or, the sort of, call it the greater good that we all agree to, right? So, and then be able to move forward. So I think I agonize over those. I'm not sure if they're ever supposed to be easy because you're always trying to respect people and hear them out. But I think whenever possible, communicating, even if it takes a little bit longer to be able to get things done, is the preferred method.
Yeah. One of the things that really come to mind is something who I had an executive director who said, without margin, there's no mission. And so to your point where you have to have that decision made for the betterment of the business, either for what's going to maximize revenues and profitability with customers, or potential new opportunities. If you don't have margin, you don't have mission. So in some cases, you're right. You might not be able to achieve perfect consensus, and you do have to step in as a leader and make that big decision for the betterment of the company or an organization. The next one I picked was a transformational, and I think transformation is kind of what we've been involved in the last number of years. And what I mean by that is we went from, business as usual. I keep hearing that terminology still used today. We hit 2020, 2021, and then all of a sudden, boom, we had lockdowns, we had business interruptions, we had all kind of crazy things going on with materials in the last couple of years. Now things are starting to stabilize. We still have an uncertain future ahead of us. We're not sure exactly how things are going to lay in the path in front of us, but we're going to make the best of it and keep moving forward because you have to. So transformation can either kill an organization, kill a company, or can give a great opportunity for a company. And let me ask you on the aspect of the either materials or roofing side, what has been the greatest transformational opportunity that you've seen post COVID?
I mean, I think people are a lot more open-minded
Okay.
on new things coming out. And I think that's the most thing. I try to come from a place of being open-minded, and I
Hmm.
think that's a balance, right? Because when you're operating a business, there's certain things that need to be operational, and then there's certain things that needs to be able to change, right? Because the world around us is constantly changing, and we always have to pay attention to what that is. So I mean, the best asset that a company can have is the ability to change and evolve and learn at high quality and quickly. And how that occurs in the organization, it will determine, or how quickly that can happen. Yeah, under the right circumstances, I think ultimately determines how organization is going to be successful. And I think for personal growth as well, I think it's commonly said, right? What got you to here, if you have bigger goals, most likely won't get you to the next thing that you want to get to if there is a higher goal.
And really, when you think of the next thing to get to, would be more in that vision, and really having a vision for your company or your organization is so critical because it gives a focal point for your team, your staff, even the industry sometimes to achieve and go after. Vision can be very simplistic. It can be very complex. And we think of a lot of the complexities. Now, currently, the thing that is really interesting in the news for me right now is, Elon Musk has come out and he said that, AI, it's potentially, what do you call it? Civilization ending future. And the thing that I'm more concerned about is not, Skynet takes over and, we've got Terminators running around in the streets looking for people. My thing with AI and this would be some of the visions that, people will have when they developed it. They said it's going to better help people and, industries and all this and great opportunity. My concern is that what happens to the job market when you have now AI with the capability to, write things, produce things, do things. How do we deal with something like this? And I think the visionary aspect of mankind really needs to step up on this to say we've got this really game-changing technology. Kind of like when you had at one time, there were companies making buggies, stuff for buggies and horse whips and things like that those steam engines or those automobiles, they're never going to catch on. And look where we are 100 years later. For vision, why is it so important to have forward sight, vision, and understanding of what unrealized potentials might be?
Yeah, I find this is the hardest area. Like, every company will have a vision statement and how they're going to do this and that and save the world and whatnot. And I think making the vision meaningful, right? Living to moving towards that vision, making it easy for your people to understand how to execute on that. I certainly don't have the answers to that. We want to do a better job impacting the world sustainably with materials and whatnot. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a lot to learn in that area on how to make that more sort of tangible. Now, to your AI point, I honestly think that it's there's just a lot more room for people to find different ways to add value. I think AI for certain is going to change how large companies compete, but for the majority of the smaller companies, I don't think it's going to have that big of an impact. Some of the tools are going to be a lot more clever, but that's just going to raise the standard in which what good looks like. Whenever let's say in the marketing world, things get very, very easy, the value goes down, right?
Yeah.
So which means that the effort always has to be put in, right? So there will be the next group of people that are going to be working hard to get that competitive advantage in one area or whatnot. So I think there's still a lot of room to grow and change there.
I think, to kind of put a lid on the AI conversation, the one thing that I'm so disappointed growing up as a very young boy, the visionary of the Jetsons, and I'm still don't have my flying car. That's the one thing I asked for when I was young. In the future, I want a flying car. I don't have a flying car, but we're probably gonna have an AI, kind of taking care of me or telling me what to do. So I don't know.
There you go. You can have some.
And then let me do this. I think the last one is going to be, which is really important. Communication is so important. Successful in communicating. I think when I have done a couple of surveys in the past, when I had the build out series and we talked about leadership topics in the surveys all the time, number one thing about what's a trait of an effective leader, always in the top, at least say the top number one or number two, communication. How hard is it? You've dealt with so many entrepreneurs and other people and you've mentored people. Why is it so difficult to succeed in communication for so many?
You know what? I asked a communication expert, or was it a listening expert? I forgot who it was. She's studied this to, a ton. And we just have a bias when we listened to stuff, right? Even if we really try hard And we're trying to minimize that sort of bias that we have towards that. So we're not taking it in cleanly, right? So when it's coming out, it's tough. So you kind of have to work really, really hard all the time to sort of figure out where people are coming from, what people are trying to say, and then what you're trying to communicate. And then at the same time, right, you're not listening so you can speak, right? So it's this whole process of trying to get better at it. Been jumping on Jesse Hernandez's peer mentoring thing, and that's all that we talk about, right? No leading questions, and how do you listen better, and how do you and all that stuff. So it's just an ongoing process. I just notice little things that I do that kind of like I can do better all the time, and it's just a constant sort of learning process.
Well, and the thing I would like to add with communication, and people will ask me all the time, doing content or even presentations and things like that, I always say that people on the other side, those who are watching you, listening to you, participating with you, they want in real life. They want you to be yourself. They want you to be Tats. They want you to be Jim. They're not looking for you to be the nightly newscaster who is pitch perfect, doesn't make a mistake, never says an or an ah, and they look perfect. They are the Ron Burgundy of their trade, right? They're just absolutely outstanding and amazing. Be yourself. And I think that's important too for communication. Be yourself, but also listen to yourself too, because you will learn more about your communication style by listening to yourself. And also too, what you say, how does that impact somebody else? If you use a certain, words that you might use, or descriptive, words and things like that, just think about how that will be perceived. So perception is important too. How others will perceive you. That's important to take in. But there's so many things that are out there, both free, different books you can get out of your library. I have a lending library through Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, and my God, the amount of books you have that are available, and just in leadership topics or whatever type of professional development topics you want, you can get that, and you're going to learn so much. But again, I think it's important to be yourself. So
yeah, well
Tats,
said.
thank you. I so greatly appreciate you helping me with the closeout this leadership series discussion that I've had this month. It's been an awesome opportunity for having you back on and us together again. And hopefully I get to go back on to Specified again down the road. So put me in the mix if you can. We can come up with a topic to cover. How can people follow you both either social media, online, or podcasting? If you could go through all that, I'd appreciate that.
Sure, absolutely. LinkedIn is a good one. We both love LinkedIn, but I'm on other places like Twitter, Instagram, and whatnot. So happy to connect. And if there's any way that I could be of service, then I'll try my best.
Perfect. Everyone, please follow Tats. Also check out his content. Amazing interviews he does. And I so greatly appreciate having him on this evening. I will make sure that I download this, clean it up a little bit, color correct it, fix the audio, and then put it back out on the YouTube channel, but also to relink it back out on the social media for everyone to consume it. Please like and also share this content with your colleagues or any of your connections that you think will get great value out of it. And until Wednesday, LinkedIn live audio chat. Tats, man, those are doing really good for me. So you think about getting into doing that, okay?
Nice.
It's going to be, I'm getting into doing this topic this week's going to be related to powder coating. So I'm going to kind of change it up a little bit. So everybody check out on Wednesday on LinkedIn. So, all right, Tats, have a good night.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
All right, everybody, have a good night also. See you next time.